All right. Hello and welcome back, everybody. As some of you might have tuned in to the last episode of Strike Force, I announced that I was going to be doing this episode of Strike Force in under an hour's time, actually. It took me a lot quicker than I thought it would be. But yeah, I had some setting up that I wanted to do because I wanted to find the exact time, timestamp of when things get really interesting with this debate that I said that I was going to review. But yes, here we are to review the debate that Destiny had against Jack Posobiec, actual Justice Warrior, bit of a fan of AJW, and some other chick named Sara Gonzales. Or at least it turned out to unfold into a full-on debate between Destiny and everyone else in regards of the vaccines, more specifically. It started off as a conversation about just general politics and how it is that America is so divided. Is America really that divided? Is it in any way specially heated today as compared to in the past or whatever? And it was a very cordial conversation, actually, for the most part, which is why that I skipped a good 24 minutes of the live stream in order to get us to the part of when that vaccines first start getting mentioned. And it takes a little bit longer for the issue to actually get heated up to where that Destiny is just all like a fuck you, you're wrong, I'm right, and you guys kind of do deserve the alienation, or at least that's almost what he kind of implies. Like, you all might know that Destiny is like one of the few leftists that I actually go listening to in regards to politics. One of the few leftist political commentators that I actually can stand listening to, just so that I do not get such freaking tunnel vision on the issues of politics. I don't want to remain in my echo chamber, so I try to broaden myself with some leftist opinions. In Destiny, especially ever since last year with how he showed his stripes in the Kyle Rittenhouse debate against Vosh, I was all like, yeah, and so I'm actually a subscriber of him now. And I do want to say to everybody else in my subscriber base who might dislike him, I just noticed that there's this video right here. White genetics are inferior. Host kicks and resets entire panel mid-debate. It just saw that and it got me to thinking that this is actually a debate that I would highly recommend to you guys to watch because it is very entertaining. It's a good almost 4 hours long worth of listening, but it is very entertaining. Like, for any of y'all who are pretty much against the idea of God, there was some special term for it, laws that are against interracial marriage. The term was mentioned of when that PSA Sitch gone interviewing No Bullshit alongside with Adam Frienddead. But nonetheless, you get what I'm talking about. But Destiny, along with some other chick named Katarana, Katarana is kind of a cute girl, might I say, although unfortunately she's a little bit emotionally manipulative, as it's kind of unfolding to be. A little bit of a Me Too allegationist, whatever you want to call them. But them two were debating in defense of interracial marriage against these other people that had just some of the most crackpot justifications on why that people should not be dating or marrying across racial spectrums. But it was quite entertaining. It was quite a show being put on, and I was just like cheering on Destiny and even Katarana for that matter throughout the entire debate. I might actually link it after this live stream, but go ahead and check that out whenever you get the chance. But on this live stream or debate, whatever, actually really ticked me off, especially at one point from Destiny, of where that, as the title of this live stream mentions, he goes accusing anyone who hesitates and especially refuses to get the vaccine a whole bunch of biochemical terrorists. And I will actually get to my response to that bit of bullshit slander once we get to that bridge. We'll cross that bridge when we actually come to it throughout this debate and reviewing it. But nonetheless, so yeah, that's why that we're here, is a debate that really ticked me off, and I really wanted to, get down to it. Um, that is how COVID is treating me right now. Night shift, a little bit flummy and stuffed up, but other than that, I'm good. Thanks for asking. And how's it going, Night Shift and Ozma Ordo and Sentinel 1000 who just joined us in the live chat? Is it miscegenation? Yes, that's a term. Thank you, Night Shift. That is the term right there. Miscegenation laws was the term. Hey, you know what? Night Shift, I just came up with a good idea. How about, because of it being like a special occasion, why don't I just like give you an invite onto the live stream for us to go ahead and review this debate? If you're all interested. I actually got the StreamYard Hangout set up here in the background because I thought that maybe I would have some co-hosts on at this hour. I did not send it out earlier to anybody because I thought it was a little bit too early for how early I started the last live stream. But this live stream, it's about 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. And so there it is to Night Shift. I sent it out to my regular co-hosts as well. But nonetheless, hey man, how's COVID treating you? It's not douchebag, it's Voshbag, says Night Shift, right? Ozma Ordo says, saw actual Justice wearing a thumbnail. Is he in the video? Yes, he is. He is in this debate. You can actually see him right here. But, yeah, let me put it in full screen. Yeah, there's him, and there's Destiny right next to him. Nightshift 10,000 says, life's treating me great, bro. Sorry to hear about your Rona. Yeah, no, it's alright. It gives me some free time to actually do 2 live streams in one day, folks. Phantom Lord DJ H07 says, sorry to hear you caught the COVID. Good to see you doing okay. Yeah, I'm doing at least good enough to where that I can be kicking with the content creation. But anyway, so as I was like saying with the setup of this all beforehand, it was just a discussion talking about the division within America. Is it any worse than it was in the past, and so forth. Here, let me bring Night Shift on. Hey, what's up, Night Shift?
Hey man, how's life treating you so far, except for the Ronas?
Good, I'd say. But yeah, long time no speak. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing wonderfully. Yourself? Other than that.
Yeah, a bit of social isolation, but I still have plenty of people that actually care and like sending their support from far distance over Messenger and all them other social medias that I can get in contact with them, all that stuff. So I actually had my mother, like, well, I did not have my mother. My mom picked up some groceries for me yesterday, so I'm good, actually. It's just a bit of a slog to try and get through the days now. At this point, I still have about, I don't know, 9 days left of isolation till I can, like, get back to work and regular social life and all that stuff.
Oh, dear.
Yep, it's unfortunate. But...
Yeah.
As I was saying, the first 24 minutes of this debate right here wasn't even really a debate. It was more of a live in-person panel discussion talking about some of the issues within America. How divided are we really, and is it really that worse compared to in the past? And then at about the 24-minute mark, Jack Posobiec brings up the vaccines, because that is really legitimately a point of division within America. And I did watch this debate fully one time, but I can't remember that freshly. But I think it's really Destiny who really starts to become an actual full-on debate, and almost implying and borderline justifying that division within the vaccine issue. Going so far to, like the title says, call anybody who refuses it biochemical terrorists.
Oh, wow.
So, what's your commentary on this so far, and what's your general opinion of Destiny, actually, Night Shift?
General opinion, I am not the biggest fan. I really only, wow, God, was it was it before the Lawrence Southern debate? Um, I really largely heard about Destiny during the Lawrence Southern debate, the whole Electric Boogaloo stream that she had going on, where she invited a bunch of people, including Destiny, on to debate, and I got the strong distinction that Destiny was more of he was more of a soy boy than anything else. That he was not that great at debating. He got into a lot of arguments with Nick Fuentes. He got into a lot of arguments with there was a bunch of people on there that he got into arguments with, and he wasn't making a lot of great points where he stood. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me that good old Destiny is making these comments that people that refuse the vaccine are a bunch of biochemical terrorists or whatever. Ugh.
Yeah, it's the most bullshit of slander that I've ever heard, and we'll respond to that when we get to it. But you're not wrong when you say that he comes off as a bit of a soy boy. I mean, he does have the high pitch, squeaky voice for it, and he has the hipster aesthetic to boot
Yeah.
for it as well. But in
Yeah.
all reality, with his takes on politics, he can be pretty based at times, like particularly with his debate against Vosh when it came to Kyle Rittenhouse. You ever seen that debate?
I did not get to see that debate. I try to avoid anything that has to do with Vouch, but I could check that out afterwards, definitely.
Do it. You'll be rah-rahing Destiny the entire way. Like, there are
Oh,
even some people within the audience of Adam and of Adam Friended and Sitch, you know, their live show, because they did a review of that debate. In the comment section of their review of that debate, there was people down in the comment section who was all like, "Never thought I'd see the day of when I'd be cheering Destiny on." So it was that good. I mean, if you
okay,
have
cool.
people like that saying that, well, then I don't think it'll disappoint you either. I know that I was certainly ecstatic about his performance in that debate. I mean, they did debate reviews of Destiny versus Vosh before, but that one was the one that really earned some right wingers respect towards Destiny.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Um, and you're not wrong when you say that. I mean, you seem like very little of Destiny, and according to Sitch and Adam, who have watched Destiny for a longer time, they say that there was a time in the past of when that Destiny used to have been like overly pedantic and nitpicky with something that with one particular thing that a person would say within their rhetoric. He would just latch onto it too hard, and that would be the downfall with his debate performance. But in both their observations, apparently he's gotten over that a bit. So I'd say good on him, I guess.
Well, I would definitely hope so because that was something I noticed with Destiny and the Lawrence Southern discussion that I saw, and I mean I hope it's still up because I hope it's still up in some form or another because yeah, that did seem to be like, you know, what Destiny would do whenever somebody would mention something is that he would kind of latch onto it and he wouldn't let go. And it actually did come back to hurt him a few times when he did that, at least in that discussion. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me. I do hope he's gotten over that.
Right. Osmo Ordo says the only good online debater is Eric July. See, somebody would have to link me some debates of Eric July because I've never,
Mm.
ever run across a live stream or anything like that of where that he's debating people live.
Yeah, he's pretty awesome at debating, honestly. Eric July, he states, you know, he states his case and he states the facts, and yeah, he always comes off as the winner from his debates. Honestly, I wouldn't want to go up against him. That's for damn sure.
Link me a debate of his or two
All
sometime
right,
in the future. But
all right,
anyway,
cool. Yeah,
enough for the procrastination. We are
yeah.
20 minutes in. Let's get into reviewing this. We got about an hour. Actually, I think the last few minutes they kind of slowed down on the COVID and vaccine issue, but I don't know. Let's go.
Cool.
Far, or they went too far. We would also probably be remiss, or I would probably be remiss if we didn't bring up the one area of polarization that's even larger than political right now, and that has to do with the way that society is becoming polarized on the issue of COVID-19, specifically on vaccination status versus unvaccination status. And you've got people now within the federal regime that are coming out and saying that if you are unvaccinated, you are the problem, you are scapegoated. Jacinda, the Prime Minister from New Zealand, was asked about this, and they said, are you creating a two-tier society where there is one rung of citizens that has less rights, right? They are second-class citizens with less rights than the people who have become vaccinated. She said yes.
And on that note, I actually, a couple episodes ago on this show, gone reviewing a clip from the Australia Prime Minister, or some Australian political official, who was talking about as to how if you're even against the mandates, you are anti-vax, and just speaking all of this authoritarian fascist shit against anybody who refuses the vaccine or whatever.
Yeah, it actually kind of surprises me that what the New Zealand Prime Minister said wasn't what the Australian Prime Minister said, because I mean, to actually deny that for Australia would be all but denying the reality of the situation. So it kind of surprises me that it wasn't the Prime Minister of Australia that said that. But I mean, yeah, in both Australia and New Zealand right now, it is getting pretty bad.
Yeah, Australia is really one of the worst countries in the Western world to be cracking down on any sort of anti-lockdown or anti-mandate sentiment. And Germany very recently is ramping up that shit too.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, you'd expect this in a third world banana republic, air quotes republic, not exactly a Western society democracy, and I use that term loosely. Straight Sith male says he's still a commie, but at least he is willing to have a talk with people he does not agree with. I would not call Destiny a communist. Actually, he's had debates against communists on the issue of capitalism. There's that one infamous one of where that he debated Richard Wolff, for example, infamous Marxist professor who does not even know his economics really, to where that he does not deserve the term to be called a professor. That's another good one that Sitch and Adam reviewed. Anyway.
Yes, we are. We positively are doing this. And so whether or not your vaccination status is this or that, whatever, listen to your doctor, do your thing. But I'm not going to sit here, and I don't think any of us should sit here, and look at a country that becomes so incredibly polarized where we take a group of people, it is a smaller group of people, by the way, and...
Was that the video?
I don't know. What the heck was that?
People, it is a smaller group of people, by the way, and
holy crap, that was the video. I did not remember that. That kind of raised a red flag in my head. Never mind.
Yeah, I was just wondering. Well, I was wondering if you were getting like a Skype call or something like that.
Oh no, nope. I don't even have a Skype. But anyway.
And blame all the ills of society on them. This has been done throughout history when regimes become decrepit, when they feel threatened, and they come up with these scapegoat targets, and it never ends well. It always ends horribly.
I think there's something else to
Oh
to
my
that,
gosh,
Jack, and
pause
actually,
Yeah.
He's right. Now I get. Oh my gosh. Basically, the unvaccinated are becoming the new Jews. Basically, yeah. Oh man.
Right.
Oh dear.
we talked about it on my show yesterday, which was, it was a comment that I had just gotten, and I hear this all the time in regards to COVID-19, which is the idea that someone had said, well, true patriots care more about public health than they do about individual freedom. And I hear that so often.
That's a bit of a contradiction. Okay, she obviously is not believing that, she's quoting someone else, but that's a contradiction in terms right there. True patriots care about public health and individual freedom. The idea of being a U.S. patriot is that you value your individual freedom over, societal security, as the good old Benjamin Franklin quote goes. So, whoever she's talking to is rather dumb, quite frankly.
Yeah.
that people are like, you are not patriotic if you don't care about the common good. If you care about the common good, you will do this for your neighbor. You will wear the mask. You will get vaccinated.
Sure, voluntarily, but no mandates. Again, she doesn't believe it. She's just quoting the other person.
Yeah.
We'll do all these things. And I really do hear that so often, that there are these two lines of thought that, like, well, you're not patriotic unless you put the greater good first, even though when you look back at the collectivist mentality, that's never been what America has stood for. That's never been what America was founded on. And yet somehow here we are finding ourselves with these people who have been conditioned to view their freedoms as selfish. And I think it's a really dangerous time.
I think we've absolutely been collectivists in the past. We literally had a draft where we forced young men who were 18 years old to go overseas and fight to the death in wars. I would say that we had an office of censor.
I wonder if any of these three actually believe in that, or if he is like coming in from left field with an entirely different person's opinion to try and I don't know, justify this talking point. I don't want to say he's strawmanning, because there were those people who actually believe that, and there are times of when that the United States has been collectivized, but that does not make it right, Destiny. So
No, it doesn't.
yeah.
Around World War II, where we were literally disallowing people casting baseball games to talk about the weather because we didn't want, foreign enemies to have any sort of information coming into the United States. I think that there's always been like a healthy balance between, these are our private liberties, but as we tell our children, with more freedoms comes more responsibilities. You want to drive, that's fine. You can't drink and drive. If you want to, stay out late, that's fine, but you've got to call and check in. Like, it's always been historic.
He's conflating responsibilities with laws and mandates, and I that's something that I just want to point out and say that I really don't like.
Same here. Wow. He's not even making that point. He's not even making that point very well. Wow. He's really fallen down here. I mean, and good Lord.
Yeah, I don't even think I really have to go in that deep as to how this conflation is absolutely fallacious to anybody who is watching. Like, responsibility is not the same as... taking responsibility is not the same as we must advocate for mandates or whatever.
Yeah. And in fact, if we're going to talk about laws, that almost negates personal responsibility, because you're hiring someone else to kind of take the responsibility, or make you take the responsibility, instead of you taking the responsibility for yourself, and you doing it. It almost negates it in a way.
No, you're 100% right, Netshift. I'm glad that you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Whether we're talking to our children or our fellow countrymen, that with additional freedoms is always necessarily going to come additional responsibilities, because you just can't have an anarchist society with everybody running around doing as they will and saying we have freedom.
Nightshift triggered, y'all.
Yeah, no, Destiny, I would like a word with you, please.
Well, let me take you in my back 10 acres of yard and just stand real still while I practice up my tactical McNuke. No. In all seriousness, nobody's advocating for death threats against Destiny. Just joking, y'all.
Yeah, no, we're just kidding. We're kidding. I don't actually want to drop him out of the back of a helicopter or anything. Okay,
wait, what?
Out loud.
What about helicopters? Are
Nothing.
you fucking
Nothing.
Pinochet sympathizer?
Nothing.
We have freedom, because freedom is really only as good as the people around you ensure it is. Like, you can have an ultimately free society that at the end of the day you don't have the ability to do anything inside. So whether that's a pandemic and you're immunocompromised and now you can't go anywhere because nobody wants to do anything to take care of themselves or take care of you to make sure that you don't get sick, or whether that's driving on the road and other people are drunk driving because we decide, well, they can drunk drive, but if they get in an accident, that's where we're going to punish them. I think that we always accept some level.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's a fair point. I mean, that's definitely when the punishment should happen. All the, I go talking about as to how that I think that some safety regulations are understandable. And obviously, Night Shift is an anarchist, everybody, and I am more of the minarchist persuasion. And, like, I'm somewhat sympathetic to the idea of safety regulations. But here's the thing. I'm not so sure. It seems to be putting the cart before the horse as far as any kind of action goes against an individual. You are going to mandate that they do XYZ to prevent themselves from doing anything bad in the future, as opposed to punish them when they actually do something bad. It just, I think it'd be better if you wait until they've actually done something to invade on a person's rights, rather than trying to do something for before that even happens. I don't
Exactly.
know if that makes sense in that shift.
Well, no, and it does, but in a lot of cases, the consequences can in themselves be a punishment. Because I mean, if we're talking about drunk driving, there's a huge risk of death there. There's a huge risk of massive body injury, and so in a lot of those cases, the punishment really more comes with the consequences, and trying to keep people from that. I mean, people are going to rebel if you try and keep them from that. But I mean, if it happens, then I mean, you can lay it down on the line just like that, basically saying, if you do this, you more than likely will die from it. So, just yeah.
And yeah, that is another problem, is that the whole drunk driving / manslaughter argument that COVID pessimists always bring up in response to us COVID skeptics who are all like, hey, do not restrict our freedoms by mask mandates or lockdown measures or whatever else have you. It doesn't work, because here's the thing. When you go running into somebody with your car, that is more equivalent to manslaughter, because you're more guaranteed to actually kill somebody. Whereas if you spread a disease to somebody, that is not a guarantee that you're going to kill somebody unless you get the bubonic plague, which this ain't the bubonic plague right here, y'all.
Exactly.
So you don't even have a leg to stand on with that argument.
Really.
Limits on our freedom. If we want to say also that there's like a two-tier system being created between the vaccinated and the non-vaccinated, I mean, I guess we can say that, but that system was created a long time ago. We've had that for a long time. In order to go to public schools, and most
That's
private
not
schools
true. That's completely not true.
Wait, do you require vaccinations to attend most schools?
Did they check a vaccination status when we got into this theater? When you went to a supermarket? When you went to...
I would argue going to school is more
everywhere.
important than going to the theater or
There are
supermarket.
also
That is, you're missing the point of his argument right there, Destiny. You're missing Jack's
Really is.
argument, is that governments, really all governments across the world here, except for perhaps Sweden, are wanting to expand of where that vaccines are mandated. Where you have like Joe Biden trying to go through go through OSHA to try and get all businesses to mandate all their employees, or at least companies that hire 50 or more employees anyways, to start mandating vaccines. And even like public or private schools, not just public schools. Before this whole Rona bullshit happened, it wasn't as widespread as Jack is trying to put it out to be, in regards of the setting up of a two-tier system with two-tiered rights in our society.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm just going to put this out there, a word of caution to Joe Biden and to anyone who wants to expand the COVID screenings or whatever. There are countries out there right now that are very nearly in open rebellion against that. I mean, there's European countries, and Australia itself it's not just riots anymore. It's like they're about to jump into open rebellion against their government over this. And so if the US wants to follow suit with that, that's probably what they're going to get.
Really? I'd have to look up as to what exactly is very recently happening with Australia. Like, I've heard of the riots of where that you have people storming government buildings in Australia over the vaccine or the lockdown measurements in general, but I haven't heard about there being open rebellion to where that.
Very nearly. There's definitely groups there that are now considering it just over this alone. But I mean, not that there is an open rebellion, but it's very nearly come to that. And it's like what you said. They've been storming government buildings. They've been going through like all these different. They've been fighting the cops. They've been rioting, and it's like it's about to come to that.
It would be, yeah, for anybody who goes advocating for this bullcrap, just keep in mind that it would be even worse here in the United States. I mean, the retaliation and reaction would be, especially when you have an armed populace like we do.
Oh yeah.
So, yeah, not trying to say anything explicit, but things will get bloody, suffice to say.
Yeah, just think January 6th, 2021, what happened there?
Think that 10 times worse, though.
Yep.
And by the way, we're not making threats to anybody who might be getting twitchy with that flagging button.
Right.
We're just making the obvious prediction. We're just stating the obvious of what will happen. Is all.
Exactly.
There are also most states have exemptions.
This is Mott and Bailey, right?
Most states. That's interesting. So not all public schools, I guess, advocate for, flu vaccines or rubella or whatever else disease that we can think of. Smallpox.
No, they wiped that out. I thought they got rid of smallpox a long time ago, but they didn't do it through vaccine mandates. They just did it with the vaccine. So.
Oh, the people were voluntarily taking the smallpox vaccines, is what you're saying?
Yeah, but way back in the day, and that's pretty much how they got rid of it. So.
Okay.
Huh.
All right. I would have to actually take a look of what is the list of vaccines that schools mandate aside from COVID-19 vaccines nowadays.
Okay.
We're not talking about those vaccines. We're talking about this vaccine.
And I'm just saying, if you to utter the phrase, we're creating a two-tier system between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. That's.
I'm just gonna say that my commentary. That's a bit of a weak response from Jack. He's all like, "We're not talking about those vaccines. We're talking about this vaccine." I mean, either way, Jack's. I don't know. I just felt that it was kind of weak. It's still. I don't know. I'm losing my train of thought. I just don't think it's that strong of a response towards Destiny, and I'll leave it at that.
Okay.
Already exists.
But there's a crucial distinction.
It's actually happening.
Absolutely. You cannot go to public schools and most private schools unless you are vaccinated, and you have to show a record of that.
So I'd like to just correct, but on top of that, most states in this country offer a wide variety of exemptions for parents to fill out. I know because I do them. It's very easy. I go to my state's registrar, the Department of Health. I go fill out my information. They send me a form. I go get it notarized saying I don't want my children to be vaccinated for whatever reason I so choose, my personal conscience. I believe that it's New York and California who are the only ones who have done away with everything except medical, but medical still remains. So the idea that I can't send my kids to public school or private school unless they're vaccinated is absolutely untrue. I know because I do it.
I wonder if anybody is going to also mention, to expound her point, that nowadays they're trying to fight any kind of exemptions. The COVID pessimists and COVID fascists are trying to fight against any exemption for the COVID vaccine.
Mm-hmm. And I wanted to add to what Destiny said, that you absolutely have to get it to go to public school and to private school. No, it actually does vary from school to school in many states. Some schools are for the mandatory vaccination. Some make it mandatory. Some have not. Like where I live here in Idaho, it actually does vary from school to school, and a lot of schools around here, public and private, have not made that the mandate. So he's incorrect on that. It does vary from state to state and school to school.
As far as vaccines before the COVID-19 pandemic ever happened?
Yes, and after, and basically getting the COVID vaccine. It varies from school to school. But even before COVID, I don't think any schools had vaccine mandates at all. That's very new. That came in with COVID-19. Because I actually did know a lot of people. I mean, really, a lot of those vaccines would happen when we were kids. Basically, when we were children, they were one-time shots that people would get when they were babies. Usually, their parents would make that for them, and schools. I had never heard about that myself, and I don't believe that schools did that before the COVID. Before the the COVID virus, or before COVID-19. I don't believe they did that at all. The vaccine mandates on that are very recent, but again, for COVID-19 vaccines, it varies from state to state, school to school.
Right. Phantom Lord says California, where I am, is forcing the vax on kindergartners. Last I heard. Well, that's quite a pity in California.
Yeah, get out of California now.
Yep. The great exodus from California.
There's an exemption process, though. My understanding for the COVID-19 vaccine as well, though. Yes, you're allowed to get tested, and you can show that you've been tested.
Many employers are not accepting that exemption. But I have a.
Okay, so one thing that is in the description and really in the title is that Destiny goes debating both the entire panel, AJW, Sarah, and Jack, and the moderator, and apparently that is a moment where the moderator jumped in. I do have to agree somewhat with Destiny that that's bad moderating, bad moderator. You should not jump into the debate, put in your own 2 cents. You should just make sure that the responses are cordial within the rules of the debate.
Exactly.
But at least somebody did say it, that COVID fascists are trying to fight back against COVID vaccine exemptions.
Mm-hmm.
Question: do you believe, Stephen, that you don't believe that there's an attempt to use vaccine status to divide us in this country? You don't think that's happening?
I do have to say that despite of my criticism of what she said in the former, right there, what she just asked, that is rather relevant. Moderator asking questions to help forward the conversation. That's good on her, and especially to try and get this back on topic, because it's talking about the conversation, again, was supposed to be about division and how divided are we, and she goes asking a question to try to steer us back on there.
Yeah.
Point, you could literally tell people to stop shitting in the streets, and Republicans will pull down their pants and run up and down and do it. I think that people are looking for divisions in any possible place.
Pause it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Given that that a lot of that right now is happening in San Francisco, one of the most liberal cities on the planet, I would say it's more on the other side that's probably happening rather than the right. But maybe that's just me.
Right. Also, I don't think that stereotype right there. Sure, there are the extremist Trump cultists. Well, actually, no. I don't even know how true that is exactly, because Trump ultimately did get the vaccine and tried to encourage some of his followers to get the vaccine, and he got freaking booed for it. Yeah. So for him to say that the Republican leadership would be able to influence Republicans to just shit in the streets or whatever, it doesn't quite compute, dude. And plus, Ben Shapiro is one of the biggest advocates of voluntary vaccines, and he has a whole lot of clout within the right, or at least the more normie and conservative-ish and conservatarian branches of the right anyways. So again, not so cut and dry.
You can find it. I guess as an American citizen, I think that we have access to a wonderful society, but there's going to be some buy-in to that society. Whether it triggers people or not, paying taxes is part of your obligation to society. Being a good neighbor is part of your obligation to society.
Again, Destiny, I would like a word with you, sir. Paying taxes is a duty to society. Yeah, screw that.
Mm-hmm. In my state, Great Hound II says in the live chat, in my state, Virginia, schools don't mandate vaccines. Huh.
Good.
Well, that's pretty lucky for a purple state that had increasingly become blue throughout the 2010s. Although luckily enough for them, they got that big old 10-point swing of people going from Democrat to Republican as far as their voting goes, with the win of what's-his-face for the gubernatorial race. I can't remember it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about, though, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
bare minimum steps to ensure that you're not transmitting a deadly disease over and over and over again to other people is like the bare minimum step you can take in society. I think it's a fair.
but
fair
What does
trade.
being a good neighbor mean, though? That means different things to different people, right? Like when you're
of course,
saying,
that's what we've
but when you're saying it's my responsibility, public health is my responsibility, it is not my responsibility that we have an obesity crisis in this nation. I have not forced people to go and make themselves.
Obesity is not
Right.
contagious.
But it makes people more prone to getting COVID,
That's
which
fine,
means
but
that
obesity itself
so
is
if
not
you
contagious.
but if you have made yourself have comorbidities to something that is going around, how is that my responsibility?
I mean, we can talk about reasonable steps you can take to prevent one from getting sick. I don't know if I would say that like every single
But
person
that wasn't
needs
your
to
argument.
live.
Right, people don't take care of their own bodies.
I don't think we can say every single person has to live an optimally healthy life. Otherwise, it's your responsibility.
but that wasn't
when it
your
comes to something like
argument.
a
Your argument
vaccine,
was
when it comes to something like a
public
vaccine.
By the way, can you guys see why I brought up
vaccines?
vaccines? Because like this was kind of, we were kind of like just chilling up here, and then I was like, let's talk about something.
He wanted to make it
spicy, you know?
interesting.
Oh yeah.
Jack, he just had to pull that dick move, huh?
Oh yeah.
But I guess it did really make the live stream worth listening once he mentioned that, and it made it worth reviewing too, which is why that we're here now.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's like much commentary to weigh in on all that stuff right there, so we're just gonna move on. Plus, we really got to power through.
Actually, this I think goes
It's
to your
like, we are
point.
going to
because
now
suddenly
speak of
it's
the
very
vaccine. We are going to have a lively argument and discussion for your viewing pleasure.
suddenly it's very contentious.
Yeah,
okay?
I do have a
And-
point about that because you brought up the in order to go to public schools, and true, we require most kids. There are exceptions to get vaccinated for public schools, but what do we require them to get vaccinated for? Diseases that are either more contagious than COVID and diseases that are more deadly for children than COVID. Like, we don't require flu shots every year for.
True. Well,
Correct.
That's at least that's a solid argument right there, because if COVID-19 was a whole lot more deadly, like I said with the bubonic plague argument earlier, if it was as deadly, had as high of a death rate as the bubonic plague, you would have an argument towards me of maybe. I mean, you're probably gonna really disagree, Night Shift, but some kind of government action, but because it isn't anything like that, I have to do a hard disagree.
Well, in all honesty, if it was as deadly, if not deadlier, than like the bubonic plague or polio or something like that, then I think you would see a lot more people wanting to take the vaccine or wanting to get vaccinated. But the thing about it is that COVID, it's been so light. I mean, I know you're going through the Ronas right now yourself, and I know that it doesn't feel that way, but it's so
well, actually,
light.
no, it is kind of light for me right now. I've gotten over the fever. I'm no longer testing.
Okay, good.
I'm no
Okay.
longer having 100+ degree fever, and I'm no longer suffering body aches. I just got phlegm in my system is all.
Okay, no, and I'm glad you're getting over that, really. But I mean, that's my point. I mean, if it was worse, if it was deadlier, I mean, to that degree, then I think you would actually see a lot more people willing to, take the risk and get the jab. But the thing about it is not a deadly virus, or at least it's not that deadly. And I mean, so many people haven't actually gotten it. So I mean, it's like, yeah, it's if it were worse, then maybe more people would be willing to get it, but it's not that horrible. And it almost seems like the government, I don't want to go into conspiracy theory territory too badly, but it does seem like the government
Please flag me, YouTube, flag me, daddy.
Yes, but it does seem like the government is going a little overboard with these things. In fact, it's going a lot overboard. Governments around the world are doing that, and you gotta wonder, without going into conspiracy theory territory too bad, is there something to it? Is there something to what the governments are doing in trying to get people to get the jab so badly? So, yeah, I'll just put that out there, and people can make of that what they will.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's not so much conspiracy theory. I mean, it's kind of out there in the open that they're setting up the precedent for them to take further control of our health in future issues.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, the coronavirus and even mandating the vaccines. Like, I'm not the biggest vaccine pessimist who is literally declaring that in about 2 to 5 years, anybody and everybody who takes the vaccine, particularly the mRNA vaccines, that you're going to literally die, 110% of every one of you. But yeah, all the same, I'm not like that. And so ultimately, taking the vaccines and even being mandated to take the vaccines in the short term and the practical side of things might not be that harmful. But what if sometime in the future the government, I do not know. I would have to come up with some other example. What if they
Exactly.
like had an actual fluke or hoax of a disease that was spreading around, to where that they found themselves a justification to mandate everybody take some certain medicine or whatever, and then it turns out, plot twist, that it's actually a poison, a timed poison of some sorts.
Exactly. Now that, in fact, I know that is what a lot of people are worried about with the vaccine, is that's what the
Yeah,
governments of the world, or the people behind the scenes, if you will, are doing, is that they release this virus that they say is terrible and going to kill everyone, and so they hype it up to the point where everyone wants to get the vaccine, or where nobody fights the vaccine mandates, and then it turns out it's the vaccine that's there to depopulate the world, and not the virus that they manufactured. And so I know there's a lot of people that have that worry, and I've definitely heard that. Um, I, God, I just don't know what to make of it myself.
Right. And in further, just to argue in all fairness, for the sake of all the COVID pessimists, I guess, there was one debate that Destiny had with this vaccine pessimist, this anti-vaxxer, who was going on arguing about why it was that the government would ultimately want to mass produce and mass spread the vaccine to where they would kill off a whole bunch of people. And the reason why that was so that they could have this, what am I trying to say? So that they could have the stupider people to control, a smaller amount of stupider people that was easier to control for the government. But here's the thing. All the people that are taking the vaccine are the people that would be, in his view, the more ignorant, the more sheepish people. That being all the COVID pessimists who are all like, I want the vaccine now because I'm so worried about it. But all the COVID skeptics are all like, no, I think I'm going to hold off, if not refuse the vaccine. I mean, if anything, his team would be alive, and the government would still have a hard time controlling the populace. So you would have to listen to the debate yourself, but his explanation on why that the government would want... Okay, the explanation itself makes fair sense, I guess, as to why that the government would try to mass poison the populace, but it does not quite line up with who would end up being alive after, all the vaccine takers were all killed off,
Right. I do want to mention something that I did read, though. It was more of I don't even want to call it a fan fiction. It was something on Wattpad, though. Somebody did write a story like that where basically they wiped out. It was basically, with the vaccine, they wiped out like 65 to 70% of the global population with the vaccine. And the group that did it, I believe, they weren't the Illuminati. Who was it? Was it Majestic 12? I forget what group it was in the book, or what group it was in the story. But they wiped out 70% of the world, and apparently they planned on the COVID vaccine pessimists surviving and being intelligent. However, there was also a mass of people in third world countries that didn't get the jab. And what this group kind of promised them, what this group basically said was, you will be part of us. We will give you membership, and you will be part of, the aristocratic top 10% of the population. Whereas these other people from these third world uneducated countries that we've kept alive, or that we've allowed to stay alive and we didn't spread the vaccine among, they will be kind of like a slave population. They will be kind of like a slave populace, and they will serve you and us. but you must first join us. You must first join us and be part of us, or we will kill you, or we will basically kill you. And that's kind of how the story started up. And I could almost see that happening basically after the whole thing is said and done, and most of the global population was killed off, to the point where, you know, these groups or whatever, they would make themselves known. They would try to establish kind of that global dictatorship type thing, and they would basically say to all the, you know, the COVID vaccine pessimists, join us and you will live in luxury, rebel against us and you will die. I can almost see it, but again, I don't want to go too far down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole. I mean,
too late for how long you talked about it.
I know. I know, and I hope to God it is not true, but
I mean, this was just a fantasy story that you had read one time, right?
Yeah. Yes. No, it was, but I mean, and it wasn't just me. There were commenters on there that were like, "Oh my God, could this actually be happening? Is this, you know, I mean, is this actually how it's going down?" Because like, I mean, they were like, I mean, there were other people reading it that were like me. They could almost see some sense in it, and there were some people that actually even answered. They commented on the story in a panic, and it was the same thing. It was like, oh my God, is this what's actually happening? Are they doing this? Because this makes a lot of sense. And so that's what they were saying, and I could definitely see some sense to it, but I don't know. I don't know. I mean, if that would actually work, or if it would just, you know, I mean, the COVID pessimists, and I believe this even happens in the story too, the COVID pessimists, they kind of build a core of resistance against this group, and they they form a revolution instantly against this group, and it's kind of it kind of turns into one of those two side wars that we see, kind of like Stephen King's The Stand, sort of, and it kind of turned into something like that. But I don't know. I guess it all depends on whether they have a backup plan in case that did happen. And if not, then it could end really badly for them. But I just don't know. I can't see the future. So,
right. So anyway, I think we're going to try and make ourselves some more time here.
Okay.
Kids to go to public schools, and COVID for kids in that age is about as dangerous as the flu.
Nor
like,
did
if
we
you want to
require
compare this to a
masks.
smallpox vaccine, smallpox's fatality rate was 30%. It was a worldwide pandemic, or a worldwide plague on humanity. These two things are not comparable. So
I agree that we don't require.
AJW coming in with the facts, y'all. Really, AJW is the best debater on this panel as far as people going against Destiny. Sara Gonzales, like, no offense to Jack or Sarah, but Sarah is just a little bit too overly emotional and ditzy against Destiny. The moderator should not be butting it at all, and Jack is kind of obnoxious in his own kind of way, and plus he's got some right-wing populist beliefs that kind of turn me off as well. Whereas AJW, he's more a slightly more libertarian leaning as compared to everyone else here. I mean, AJW, obviously he's kind of pro cop. He's more of a law and order Republican form of government, kind of a libertarian more than anything else, but he's still like he's more libertarian than your average populist Trump supporter, if I may put it that way.
Well, that's good.
Flu shots, but if the flu was killing, 500,000 people in
the
a
flu
year,
kills
It
more
does.
children than.
Hold on. The flu fatality rates are nowhere near the SARS-CoV-2.
He's talking about for
We're talking about children
Yeah.
because you brought up schools.
But you don't get vaccinated just for children. I don't know why conservatives are so short-sighted when it comes to public health. You don't get shot just for the children. You get shot to protect their families, to protect their teachers, to protect other people in society. This is how vaccinations work. Vaccinations are not an individual protection measure. It is a societal epidemiological health prescription.
I think we all realize that it is likely to spread to more people than just children or even just old people, Destiny. Please, do not be so short-sighted and narrow-minded on what your opposition is like. We realize that it'll reach out to pretty much every family member of all ages, or potentially could anyways. Not will, because I mean, if anybody watched my video a little bit from earlier today, don't know if you have, Night Shift, but I got on explaining as to how that most of my family got exposed to coronavirus twice, and only a handful of people, like only 1 to 2 in both cases, ended up actually testing positive. Everyone else, funnily enough, was safe. So the infectability of this virus is rather ambiguous anyways, but nonetheless, we know that it can potentially spread to all people of all ages, Destiny. What we think is that it's not worth infringing on people's liberties because, because of the fact that it has such a low fatality rate and so forth.
Right.
That's all.
Yeah.
To get us back on subject for a second,
vaccinate them?
I'm curious, because we all seem to be, at least I thought we were in agreement on several things until we got to this very divisive issue of vaccines. But I'm just curious, do you believe that there's a concerted effort in this country to divide the populace along issues like race, for example, using race, for example, to divide us, using the vaccine to divide us, using partisanship,
I mean, I think the division is a byproduct of other goals. I don't think the goal is explicitly like, we're going to divide with this issue and focus on it.
Bullshit.
Really?
Maybe not you, Destiny. Maybe not the average Joe. Maybe you and the average Joe COVID pessimist is not intending to divide people, but the elite Democrats and all that, politicians from all around the world, even like the Australian politician that we mentioned a little bit earlier, damn well are just looking to divide based off of vaccine status. In fact, there's like this one ex-military guy that I read on Twitter not too long ago. I can't remember his name, but he had the name of Scorched Earth Democrat running for Congress. I tweeted one of his, or quote tweeted one of his tweets to respond to it one time. But anyway, he was basically just advocating that there would be mandates against everybody, and you just basically a murderer. And you know what? Actually, I don't know. I say that there is not. He's probably not intentionally trying to divide people, Destiny. I mean, but then there is the fact that he later calls anybody who refuses the vaccine biochemical terrorists. So, cognitive dissonance much, Destiny?
Yeah.
Just being honest.
I'm just waiting for the unvaccinated six-sided stars to come out.
Right.
Yep.
I think that people have issues that they care about a lot, and then people end up being divided on it. So whether we're talking about people on the left dividing people with the coronavirus or Republicans dividing people with abortion, I don't think anybody's goal is to divide somebody with a topic.
I don't think it's just people on the right dividing people. Leftists have their own methods of dividing people as well. You're controlling my body, my choice. You just want that child to die outside the womb by being thrown in a dumpster or whatever the fuck logic or rhetoric they want to espouse in response to the pro-life crowd. So, yeah.
It's just you have things you care a lot about, and then you push it, and those topics end up becoming divisive because people disagree with them.
Look, I think people's uninformed nature leads to bad policy and authoritarian policy. We've seen the polling that a bunch of people in this country think that the hospitalization rate for COVID-19 is over 50%, over 30%. So, like, people think that COVID sends you to the hospital like smallpox. I understand why.
What have you before researched the numbers to be as far as hospitalization rates of coronavirus goes? Night Shift?
Hospitalization? Oh, gosh.
I think I've researched that it was like 10 to 20% at highest. I would have to look back again to see exactly what the number is, and I can't even remember where I got the number, but still, it wasn't like anything that high.
I saw somewhere that it was only 10 to 15%, really.
All right. It's definitely something that we'll have to go and look back on to everybody watching, folks. So do not go definitely quoting us on it.
Yeah.
They're pressuring their governments to pass regulations
to
treat it like smallpox.
Russ Doe had a column in the New York Times where he was saying that, what if COVID was 10 times more deadly? And my response was like, well, yeah, then I'd be there with you, right? That I would understand.
Jack pretty much putting forth the same attitude as me. If COVID was bubonic plague, then yeah, we have an argument. Or you have an argument, excuse me.
Yeah.
Some of this stuff, and we could take those steps, right? If it was as deadly as smallpox, then yes, certainly we would be using much more drastic measures. But when it comes to this, I find it very interesting that we argue more about the effects of the steps that we're going to be taking on this, rather than, for me, I've been a big, proponent of understanding where COVID came from, understanding this process, the NIH process, and looking into, early January 2020, I was like one of the first guys in the country who was reading the Mandarin on various Chinese blogs, trying to figure out what the heck was going on in Wuhan, and then digging into the lab and everything else. And it's amazing to me how that, which really seems like something the country could unite on, and I don't mean to drive the conversation into this, that has been completely usurped by, instead, no, we're going to have these divisive mandates. And it's amazing to me that when I see Joe Biden, every time he announces a mandate, it's because he's trying to distract from something that's just happened. So Afghanistan falls apart. He announces he's going to push nationwide mandates. Then he has a political loss. He's suffering badly in the polls. He announces that OSHA is going to fund, just this last week, right, is going to push the new rule. 49 pages, the thing comes out, everyone's going to be fined. And so everybody then goes and talks about the mandates. At the same time, you're seeing the ordering of vaccinations for children in New York State. And so it's looking at it again, like, because I do look at everything through the regime, not everything.
Although I'm going to say this about it, I want to say this about it. Joe Biden's doing it wrong. I have no doubt that's what he's doing, but he's doing it wrong because, Afghanistan falls apart. Then he says he's going to do COVID, vaccine mandates, and that's just taking a bad situation and, of course, adding more shit to it, which people aren't going to like, which makes it worse. So, I mean, again, it just goes to show that Joe Biden is pretty much incompetent as a president because, he can't even distract from something bad with, something good, basically being like, oh, this good thing happened, though. Focus on this. No, he's taking a bad thing and he's making it focus on something even worse. So it just kind of points to his incompetence even more,
well,
in my opinion.
You got to keep in mind, Night Shift, in these people's point of view, the idea of doing business mandates, of mandating that businesses mandate, vaccines on their employees, that's a good thing in their point of view.
To them, yes. And you're right about that. To some people, it is a good thing, but it's like, yeah, you got to watch out for that.
Maybe I ought to try to research deeper to see if how much of the Democratic base actually agrees with the idea of vaccine mandates.
Well, yeah, there you go.
Speaking of all this stuff, I want to mention very quickly before we continue, actually. There's this one discussion that Sitch and Adam had with the distributor. Don't know if you've ever seen that one, but apparently he was asked if he would advocates for vaccine mandates, and distributor was all like, if the vaccines worked, then yes. There was no classifier that if the virus was more deadly and the vaccines worked, then yes. Just no, if the vaccines worked better, then yes. I mean, it would, in my opinion, it's not a matter of the vaccines working as to what would get me to change my stance. It would be a matter of the virus being a whole lot deadlier. That would change my opinion. But apparently he's of the opposite opinion.
Apparently.
Distributor, he's like one of those, people from the good old days of Sargon Akkad being, during his heyday. All the skeptic community being united against the SJWs, but now, very recently, he's become a borderline. I don't know. I don't want to say borderline fascistic. Like he does not seem as blatantly fascistic as Academic Agent, for example. But Academic Agent wants to mandate traditional family roles and wants to. Society to frown upon any man who wants abs on their girl.
Right.
Distributus, he not taking as hard of a stance, but still, he went to bat for him in that discussion with Sitch and Adam. But anyway.
I look at a lot of this through the politics of, or the lens of regime politics, that you can really see that a lot of what the regime, and to your point, I do think that this is something that a lot of people care about, but I can see that the way that the timing of these orders is really being pushed to help benefit the regime in terms of the larger narrative war.
I would also say that the idea that I am supposed to put my child at risk, because there is risk to both things, right? If you want to say there is risk that my child might be one of the few who gets COVID-19 and has some sort of long-term complications or, passes away, there's risk there. There is also a risk when you are talking about a medicine, a drug that you are injecting into your body. And I just think
yeah, and there is risk. This person in the one of the live chats of Destiny's stream, he has his own live chat like going on both sides here. I think one of them is from Twitch and one of them is from YouTube. Mid-mom Sky is all like, risk whataboutism. Fuck that. The risk of anything really is not whataboutism. It is very relevant onto whether or not it's worth it to be mandating that everybody take the vaccine. This mid-mom Sky is such a freaking moron.
And I do want to mention that she is right. So are you, because on a personal basis, my wife actually did take she took the jab because she was supposed to go on a cruise, which subsequently got canceled. And she became very sick and very weak from it. And we actually couldn't talk to each other. I mean, we were living separately at the time. But we could not, she could barely even move for almost 3 days after taking the jab. And the same thing happened with my mom who took the jab. And she became very sick from it too. And there was even going further into this, there is he's a songwriter and a musical artist named Thomas Burgesson. If you've ever heard of Two Steps from Hell, he's one of the composers for that group. And he was going to put out another album last July, but he got the COVID vaccine and it literally put him in the emergency room. It got so bad for him. And so he couldn't actually put out the album. And for all he knows, the jab nearly killed him. So it's not risk whataboutism. There is risk to taking this vaccine. And for some reason, it does. It makes people really weak and horribly sick after they take it. And again, there's a huge risk to that. So yeah.
I have one question for you, Night Shift, as far as your opinion and observation goes. As far as like extreme side effects in comparison to other vaccines, because obviously as all the pro-vaxxers will say, all vaccines have those people who suffer extreme side effects or whatever.
Not side effects that are that extreme. I've never seen that in conjunction to any other vaccine.
Oh yeah, the next question I was going to ask was, do you think that all the extreme side effects are just being what's the word I'm looking for?
Exaggerated?
Well, not exaggerated, but extra publicized, I guess. Extra publicized as compared to other vaccine extreme side effect stories? Or do you think that there's, even though it might still be a minority, it's still like a higher percentage of cases where people have extreme side effects with the COVID-19 vaccine as compared to other vaccines?
I would say that no, it's not being exaggerated at all. From what I've seen from people that I know and from people that I'm in contact with who've taken the vaccine, the side effects of it are very extreme in comparison to other vaccines. And it does, again, jumping down the conspiracy theory rabbit hole, it does kind of worry me on those ends. Like what the hell is going on? What is this? I mean, it's not killing anyone yet, but it's like some people, some people it's put in the hospital. Some people it is made too weak to move, and no, it is not being exaggerated at all in any way. It in comparison to other vaccines, I would say the side effects are very extreme.
you'd say that there's a higher percentage of them with each person that takes the vaccine as compared to other vaccines?
I believe so, yeah. Honestly, again, from what I've seen, yes.
No one in the chat says, "You look good, no homo," at the Dark Conservatarian. Please keep healing, my friend. Will do. No one also says, "I saw your video on the Kyle Rittenhouse trial. Bravo, good sir, bravo." Well, thank you. I mean, it was one of my more... Oh.
Wait, was he talking to me or you?
No, he was talking to you. My bad.
Oh, okay.
You're right. He was talking to... Damn it, I gotta, like, watch that myself, actually. Let me...
Oh, dude, you haven't seen my video?
I'm sorry. I think I might have started to at one point, had it pulled up on my phone, but then I forgot to get back to it and my phone refreshed or something else.
Now I know the terrible truth!
The terrible truth is that the Dark Conservatarian secretly hates you, Night Shift.
Oh shoot! But yes, sent one. Wait, who was it? Sent one who sent that message?
No, it was no one.
No one. Oh, okay. Yeah, no one. Thank you very much. I'm glad you liked the video, and hey, do me a favor and recommend it as much as you can.
All right. Okay, so reading this out loud because this is relevant to the last live stream. No one in the live chat says, in the previous live stream, I mentioned about a man who is being forced to pay child support. That really isn't even his kid. Extra context there. It's on YouTube. His name is Carnell Alexander, and it's reported by WXYZ-TV Detroit Channel 7. All right, thanks for the reference right there, no one. And I'll try to remember to look it up sometime. Not before I go looking at at Night Shift's Kyle Rittenhouse video, though. Sorry, Night Shift.
All right, it's all right.
Anyway, this live stream is getting long and late, so let's power on, people.
All right, cool.
The idea that I am supposed to put my child at risk for a stranger at the supermarket that I don't even know. I am beholden to some stranger in society more so than I am to my own family is absolutely preposterous.
And that's that kind of raises another question, actually. Isn't if you give a child, I mean, there is a certain age in which that okay, what am I trying to say here? There is such a thing as giving a vaccine to somebody who is too young, right?
Yes.
Like you cannot do it to a freaking 5-year-old, or else the vaccine will be overpowering for them and it'll shut down their heart or some. I don't know. I do not want to say anything for an assured fact. So YouTube, please do not flag me. I don't know.
Some vaccines do that, though. Yes, some vaccines are like that. There's others that aren't that extreme, but some are. So, yes.
Yeah, it's something that is definitely worth looking into. Is maybe it should only be I don't know. Maybe it should not be allowed for kids who are so young. The COVID-19 vaccine.
I mean, you can play that on both sides, though. Maybe you think you don't want to put your child. I wouldn't want to put my child at risk being in a classroom with your child. I don't want my child to contract something.
Then stay home.
I don't want.
Then stay home.
No, but your child is the problem, not mine. Because I'm
It's
willing
not,
for
though.
my child
You
to take the
can't
minimum
spread a
number of
virus
steps
that you don't
necessary.
have.
I'm willing to have my child take the minimum steps necessary to make sure that they're safe and they protect their classmates as well. I'm guessing you're probably against children wearing masks too, or other types of.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, so
It's abusive.
It's
abusive.
Yeah, so, but the problem is.
Well, wait a minute. Then get your own kids vaccinated and don't worry about hers.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you're protecting your own kids. It's not everyone has to get the vaccine just so you'll be protected. You get the vaccine, that's it. It's okay. It's over. You gotta be kidding me with this.
Yeah, the vaccines are so effective. They should be effective protecting yourself and your kids, for that matter, against other people, right? I mean, this is so dumb right here. I mean, okay.
Really?
If the vaccines are so effective, then you should be assured that you're protected against those who don't really want to be vaccinated, so therefore there's no point in mandating it. If they're so effective, there's no point in mandating it. But on the other hand, if they are so ineffective to where that it almost doesn't work or starts losing its effectiveness even more and more as time goes on, then by extension as well, it's also not worth mandating. That's my argument right there.
Yeah.
Child never wore a mask.
If my child catches...
I also want to point out that, did you see that one video of where that there was that one kid who was recorded by these couple of preschool teachers who was trying to force the kid to wear a mask, and he was like in distress. He really did not want to wear the mask, and the fact that they were just shoving it on him, trying to force the mask over his face. And like I said in response to that, if anything, the teachers are risking themselves even more and more and risking the spread even more and more by trying to touch him by trying to force the mask on him. Excuse me. They'd be taking less of a risk just leaving him alone than literally handling him the way they were.
Right. And even then, if we're talking about, and I did see that. And the thing about it is, even worse, is that at that stage in a kid's life when they're in like preschool age, facial recognition is one of the most important things that they need to learn. And the whole, even just the mask mandates or even just like forcing people to wear masks, that's really going to fuck that up for not just that kid, but a lot of other kids. And so, there's always that other issue that, it's not just they're risking infecting themselves by touching the kid or risking infecting the kid, but they're really interrupting a lot of development with these kids and with that kid and a lot of other kids. So,
I wonder if the CDC would flag you for saying that, Night Shift, that facial recognition is essential for kids' mental and cognitive development.
I don't know, but
it's all like we label this as false information. Kids do not need to recognize faces in order to get smarter.
Well, okay, so yes, do not flag this video, but that is what I read.
And I think that there's, in all reality, I don't think there is any substantive way to challenge against that. A lot of people might try to downplay it. All the COVID pessimists might try to downplay it, but they'll have no real scientific basis to go against that little ditty.
Yeah.
Something or get something because another student isn't taking the minimum preventative risks, and we know that children are pretty tenacious when it comes to the coronavirus. They're probably not going to die. They're probably not even going to get seriously ill. But if they bring that home to grandma
DarkCon, I have to go. My wife's calling me right now. Thanks for inviting me on. Thanks for having me on, and I'll see you around. Okay, buddy?
All right. It was nice having you on. See you later.
It was nice being here. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Bye. So, and then there was one. It's just me, folks. That's the thing. The one thing about having a co-host. On the one hand, the co-host helps you think a little bit more and try to break down a certain issue that you have heard in, a video or live stream and you're trying to review or respond to. They help you think a little bit more, but at the same time, it takes up more time. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. And as Night Shift leaves, it's also a double-edged sword. On the one hand, I don't have somebody to help me think out all my talking points and what I want to say in response to all these people. But on the other hand, it will take me less time to get through this debate. So let's do it,
And now grandma and grandpa died because you decided to fill out a bullshit exemption for your kid because you didn't want them to get a vaccination because of a strain.
Even with old people, it is like nothing over 10% as far as death rates go.
You're in a supermarket. Right? That's just absolutely absurd.
Okay, so hold on. So here's the thing. It's if your mask works, if your vaccine works, if your child's vaccine works, you shouldn't have to worry about my child. My child is not a threat to you.
I don't.
If you believe in your science, then believe in your science. You're fine.
I don't like the way she framed that. If you believe in your science, you believe in your science, you're fine. It's more like if you believe in your protective measures, you believe in your protective measures. But when you say your science, you do honestly make yourself sound like an anti-science mongoloid. Just saying, Sarah. Just saying.
And if you don't, and you're worried about my child, what does that say?
I cannot understand how conservatives are so bad with probability. It absolutely blows my mind. If your seatbelt works, why?
I mean, doesn't your stuff work, Destiny? Doesn't your stuff work?
Why do you have an airbag? If your airbag works, why does your car crumple? If this all works, why do you care about other drunk drivers? Like, you can make the dumbest one in the world, but this every single thing.
Here's the thing: the protective measures put on a single person's car, airbags, car seat belts or anything else like that. That's more to protect the driver and the passengers within, not to protect everybody outside of the car. If a person is just rolling down the road in their car without any seat belt or airbags or anything else like that installed in there, they just got a literal unsafe hunk of metal, well then they aren't invading on anybody's rights by doing that. They aren't putting anybody at risk except for themselves. I mean, yeah, in theory, I guess without the seatbelt, somebody could fling out the window and end up hitting somebody else by body slamming or whatever. But honestly, how much likely is that? They're more likely to crash their own head into the pavement or something else like that. So he is bringing this up, and I'm going to say that in response, right after offset, to say that it's not quite equivalent. These whole measures of mandating masks or vaccines versus mandating seat belts or car seats or seat belts or airbags.
Not at all a great analogy.
It absolutely is completely one-to-one in comparison. The things that you do epidemiologically is not we're going to do this one thing and 100% prevent the virus, and if we don't, it's a failure. It's all the little steps that you take on the way. If everybody social distance and mask, you prevent the spread this much. If everybody did that and then got vaccinated, you prevent it this much. If everybody stays home, this is how it works. All of it is probabilistic. This idea that, well, you've got something that increases your probability by this percent, so now nobody has anything. It's the dumbest look at. I don't know.
So if you are living,
is it really worth mandating? I mean, I don't know. He's not exactly bringing forth numbers or percentages to say of how high a percentage that effective the mask, a mask or a vaccine or having the vaccine and a mask at the same time is. But all the same, I just don't really buy into that argument. It's just a platitude as far as I'm concerned right now.
In a free society, if you choose to live in a free society and you choose to go into society, you are accepting the risk that you will get a transmissible disease every time you exit your home. That is how a free society works. You will never vaccinate every virus out of the population. You will always have sickness, and we will always transmit diseases, because that's just the way a free society works. So if you are worried about what everyone else is transmitting, you are the one who should stay at home, because we've always lived, we've always transmitted flu at the supermarket. No one's been worried about that. We've always transmitted diseases. No one's been worried about it.
We don't live in a free society. We live in a democratically elected representative government. So if most of the public decides that these mandates are indeed necessary for you to participate in society, then you are the one that is going to have to abide by what the public.
So what is
And if society was to say that we should enslave all, what am I trying to say? I almost said Mediterranean. I mean Caribbean. If society was to vote democratically that we're to enslave all Caribbean islanders and all people of Caribbean island heritage, well then apparently, by that logic, Destiny, you must just go along with that rule, apparently, because you have said that you're like, I don't know. Apparently, Destiny is Hispanic. He's like Puerto Rican or Cuban. No, he's Cuban. Yeah, I think that's what it is. He's a part Cuban, of Cuban heritage, and it's just this whole idea of we don't live in a free society, we live in a democracy right here. The fact that just because the majority votes on it does not mean that it is right, Destiny. This is exactly the cancer with pure, straight, majoritarian democracy, y'all. Let this sink in right here. It's just an absolute bullshit and, quite frankly, psychotic argument from Destiny right here. It's like, he's being unhinged right here. He's like overly triggered with Sarah. Like Sarah is pretty triggered in her own right, but Destiny, he's just letting his triggerness take control to where that he is just going. I don't know. I don't know. Tony Kickercomp says, we are a constitutional representative republic. Yeah, exactly. So there are some checks and balances, luckily enough, at least with our air quotes democracy here in the United States. But all the same, I'm just responding to the one stupid ass argument that Destiny had put forth in response to that. Just because we do not live in technically a free society here in the US, because quite honestly, are we a free society with all the economic regulations and all the social regulations, even gun control laws within each appropriate jurisdiction, etc.? Are we really that free of a society? Probably not. Somebody can argue that, but that does not make it right necessarily. That does not mean that we should not be a free society. Destiny.
That is how our government works. That's how our system works. We're in a democratically elected republic. That's how it works.
How do you define right?
That's how. I don't even have anything to say. I pretty much said all that I wanted to say in response to that. This is ludicrous. This is ludicrous, Destiny. A lot of times you quite frequently have some base takes, Destiny, and other debates, but this debate, you're just so freaking bad and flimsy with your argumentation.
I'd like to know how you define rights. Like this will actually get us back on topic a little bit. Where do rights come from? Because it sounds to me
there's a whole other conversation on, do we believe rights come from God? Do we believe they come from government? Do we talk about positive rights versus negative rights? But it sounds to me like you're.
But you're making it sound like that they come from the majority opinion, Destiny. With your whole, we don't live in a free society, we live in a democracy where we can just vote that you go ahead and take the vaccine and take a mask, and therefore, you cannot do anything about it.
Saying it's within your right for the majority to dictate force against others. So, for example, if the
precisely exactly what I said in response to Destiny. I mean, okay. Again, bad on the moderator. She should not be chiming in. What she said is true, but that does not mean that she should have said it right then and there. We have democratic elections and how our laws are put into place. Not all the elections are straight democratically done. I mean, the presidency is done through the Electoral College, and Senate. The Senate was voted in when our country was originally founded. Our senators were not elected via the straight vote of the people. It was voted via the legislatures of each appropriate state. And even the laws, there is a certain process that they go through before. What am I trying to say? Even with voting in laws, there is a certain process that it goes through instead of just straight majority rule in the House of Representatives or whatever.
Majority of people say we should enslave people, then we should enslave people.
So
is
we
that
can
what
have,
you're saying? we have edged out in our Constitution. There are going to be minimums, or there are going to be certain inalienable rights that we cannot take from other people, and that's up to the courts to decide,
Bodily
or us
autonomy?
to change the Constitution.
Yeah, bodily autonomy. I mean, refer to Roe v. Wade. They pulled the Fourth Amendment. I think it's the Fourth Amendment, anyways. The right to privacy, tried to take that right and extrapolate it onto a person's bodily autonomy, which I do not think that that's quite the logic. That even if I was a pro-choicer, I would not go with that logic. And just in any argument for bodily autonomy, I don't know if I would use the privacy argument. I don't know. It's understandable, but I do not know if I would try to extrapolate the right to privacy, the right to make sure that nobody is able to see whatever bit of information that they want on you or what is happening in your life. use that to say, oh yeah, you have a right to not be invaded on your body. I mean, I think the right to not have your body invaded is a right that is independent of the right to privacy. Just my personal opinion anyways.
Otherwise, right? You can say about the time you want, but vaccinations are required for children going to public schools,
Yeah,
right?
what we discussed
the point
that,
is that rights exist on paper, okay? It doesn't matter what right we talk about if we can't leave our house because we're worried about something, or if we can't go. Now, I'm not saying that the coronavirus is so bad you can never leave the house. I'm just saying that in order for society to function, we don't all work in this ultimately free way. We have a responsibility to other people around us. Conservatives should understand this the best because conservatives are the most local people that tend to participate locally in their churches, in their charities. They give more than liberals do. You guys should know this better than anyone else, and that in order for society to function, to be well lubricated, to not have a lot of friction, you have to have some minimum level of buy-in in terms of how you treat the people around you. One of the ways you treat people nice is by not volunteering as a bioterrorism weapon because you don't want to get vaccinated because of something that fucking Anderson...
There it is right there, folks. The bioterrorism weapon. I thought the exact term was biochemical terrorist, but he says bioterrorism weapon, which that is absolute bullshit. Like, people just going around willy-nilly within their regular lives, not taking the vaccine. I mean, that argument is absolute bullshit slander. I'm just gonna say it. And it's utterly stupid. Anybody who goes around saying that anybody who does not take the vaccine is some biochemical terrorist or a bioterrorism weapon, as he exactly says, is just stupid. One, it does not work on the violence sense of the word of terrorism. Like, that's the key word here, is terrorism. It does not work on the violent side of that definition of that word because it isn't that violent in the grand scheme of things. Otherwise, because again, COVID-19, 2% death rate, even less than that according to some other sources. So yeah, the very violent disease, not really. And really, if we are going to say that it does not matter of how small the death rate is for it to be violent, well then, in that case, you can say that even spreading around, I don't know, the cold is some kind of violence against a human being. Or you can like say in response that it does not even require that you kill another person by spreading the disease to them for it to be violence. By that logic, you can say, like I just said, spreading the regular seasonal flu or a cold to someone else, that is also violence, that is also terrorism against your fellow man. When really, no, it'd be utterly stupid. Spreading diseases is not inherently in of itself terrorism or violence, really. And really, the other side of the definition of the word terrorism, of why that your classifier right here, Destiny, and anyone else who goes accusing people of being bioterrorists or whatever for not taking the vaccine, the other side of this, of why that doesn't work, is because there is no political motivation for somebody to be walking around with a disease unknowingly, emphasis on the word unknowingly, spreading a disease to other people. Because people who go like spreading coronavirus around to society, people are not even knowingly spreading. People are not, let me emphasize my words here, people are not intentionally nor knowingly spreading around coronavirus to other people. I mean, one of the facts of coronavirus being that you become an asymptomatic carrier for 1 to 2 weeks before your symptoms actually incubate and you actually start hurting or whatever. Heck, in some cases, people have argued that you won't ever show symptoms at all. So, what political motivation is there? I mean, the closest thing that it would get to terrorism, like I said with Loudmouth on a couple episodes ago of Strike Force, the closest thing that you could call anything relating to terrorism on this whole issue is if we go like, is if a whole bunch of anti-lockdown people, a whole bunch of vaccine pessimistic type people just go, I don't know, bombing a government building in the name of their own freedom to be free of any vaccine mandates or lockdown measurements or anything else like that. That's the closest thing that it would be of being a terrorist. The political motivation being they're fighting for their freedom against lockdown or COVID fascism or anything else like that. even then, I would almost more argue that they're freedom fighters more than anything. But then again, one could almost argue, what is the line that is drawn between a freedom fighter and a terrorist? I mean, some people could even make the argument that the founding fathers, way back in the revolutionary days, were terrorists in a sort of way. As soon as they declared war against the British Empire and independence from the British Empire. I don't know. There might be more nuance to that discussion as far as the difference between a freedom fighter and an actual terrorist, but nonetheless, my argument still stands as to how this argument is this term is absolutely fucking retarded. Bioterrorist weapon, biochemical terrorist, whatever.
Cooper said on CNN.
For someone who claims that conservatives have a hard time believing in science, you seem to not understand the idea that no one can spread a virus that they don't have.
And also, my rights aren't.
I'm not a bioterrorist weapon by going to the grocery store if I don't have a virus.
You know what? I'm surprised that Destiny did not jump at any point in this debate. I think I remember him not doing it anyways. Not jumping on at any point saying that you can be an asymptomatic carrier. But I don't know. Maybe I'm speaking too soon. Let's see.
Your assumption that everyone else you come into contact with, if they are not vaccinated, must have COVID is ridiculous.
But there's an increased probability.
No, but
works.
like
No, Destiny. That is the assumption that you are making when you go calling them bioterrorist weapons. Fuck you.
My rights are not subject to your inability to assess risk properly. You're talking about people afraid
Based AJW.
to leave their homes because of the coronavirus.
I literally
You're talking
said I
about
didn't
children being afraid to go to school, or parents afraid for their children to go to school. The risk is near zero. Also, when Biden was announcing the vaccine mandates and what he was proposing, he said breakthrough cases were 1 in 5,000. Breakthrough hospitalizations, again from the president, were 1 in 160,000. I think 1 in 160,000 is not enough to infringe on other people's rights. Jack said it earlier.
Based. I don't have anything much to say here except just go, I guess one could say, kissing AJW's ass.
Earlier, if COVID was 10 times, 20 times more deadly and more deadly for children.
And really, this is, again, one of the points that makes me go saying that AJW really is the best debater on this panel as compared to Sara or Jack. And you know what? Now that I think about it, Jack hasn't hardly contributed a bit of argument the last few minutes.
We'd be having a different conversation, but
the,
we need to
the
assess
answer
the
You
to
also
risk.
this
wouldn't
is
have to
simple.
mandate it.
The answer
You wouldn't-
to this is simple.
You wouldn't have to
You will
mandate it.
take-
People would go
you
get it.
You vaccinate, everyone vaccinate, then you will plug into Zuckerverse, and in
Jack is just being a little bit too obnoxious right now. He's just interrupting people with his German accent impersonation.
Zuckerverse, we will all vaccinate each other
His SS officer impersonation.
multiple times a day. You'll be taking every new vaccine, then the pill comes out, the injections will continue until compliance has been achieved.
So, just to attempt to get us back on topic.
But there is
once more.
there is
No,
a bigger question here, right? And I think we should separate the two over, like, are vaccines good versus should vaccines be mandated, right? Isn't that I mean, that's like two separate
Right.
things, right?
Correct.
Yes, exactly.
I think it boils down to, do you believe, we'll have time for questions in just 1 second, but do you believe that the government,
Be very
some
quiet,
people
audience.
phrase
We
it
don't
this
want to
way,
hear from
do
you.
you believe that the government owns individuals or individuals own themselves? And is this a part of our American narrative that we've lost? Like, what did the founders intend?
Okay, I know that I credited earlier the moderator for asking questions to try and get the panel back on subject, but that question does seem a little bit more loaded against Destiny than open-ended for the entire panel to answer however they want.
When they talk about liberty, when I asked the first question on this panel, like, how do you define the founding principles if you were to explain them to a child? Like, what is America? What does it mean to be an American? Does anybody have an answer for that?
Well,
How do you define
there
it?
are no rights. Rights come from me. If I
Shut up, Jack. Let the panel answer honestly. You answer honestly, okay? Take off your RoboCop visor right there and give an honest answer. And no, before anybody commentates, this does not look as much like a RoboCop visor as his glasses do. My glasses are grandpa's sunglasses.
give them to you, you're not allowed to have these silly things. You're silly people. There are no rights. The government has rights, and you are children who will obey what we tell you. We might make you think you have the right to vote for this approved candidate or that approved candidate, or have arguments from this approved source and that approved source asking this approved.
We get it, Jack. We get it. Authoritarian regimes, and yeah, Destiny is advocating for authoritarianism. Yeah, we get it, Jack.
Approved question or that approved question, but at the end of the day, you have nothing. This is silly.
Jack has the weirdest filibusters. I was gonna say, I think fundamentally,
Really?
like the American identity, like we should all have an understanding of what like the principles of America mean. Like I want to move past that. I think fundamentally what separates Americans from other peoples in other nations around the world is that we have like an optimistic mindset, and this is in part due.
Not Destiny. Destiny is not optimistic enough to leave people alone with their liberties. Just saying.
Due to our structure of government. Like people always say, we're the first nation to put freedom of religion in the Constitution. We're also the first nation to put intellectual property rights in the Constitution, because the idea of America is that if you invent it, you own it, you take it as far as you can take it, because it's your adventure. And we see the American optimism in different aspects of our lives. Go watch the ending of a British sitcom. The joke is always on the main character. American sitcoms always uplift the main character. This is because fundamentally we're an optimistic people, and we shouldn't lose the fact that we're an optimistic people. The Hollywood ending, when Hollywood used to reflect our values more, is a thing because that is reflective of our American values, that we want the hero to win. We want, like, we're rooting for good over evil, not to make it so dramatic like that. That's not the same in other nations, and I see us becoming more cynical, less optimistic, talking about subversive things like national divorce, just giving up, packing it in, dividing up the country, as if that's not going to lead to a civil war. So we got to hold.
I might have to speed along with the debate, fast forward a bit, because I do not know if they mentioned any more of the vaccines for a while now.
Hold on to that optimistic ideal, because that's what America is. It's the adventure, not the result.
There's a great kind of like it's one of those memes that's out there, and it's it's talking about the differences in literature. So for different societies, and so the stereotypical American, it's it's like, I will die for liberty, right? And then it's got the British, British literature is, I will die for honor, and then the French, of course, I will die for love, and then the Russian is like, I will die. And it's sort of this like very cynical, very Eastern, kind of thinking. And I do feel though that we have lost kind of that American sort of sense of, if I have liberty, it's not just liberty for the sake of being able to do whatever I feel like. It's liberty, it's what you say, to achieve those optimistic goals, to achieve those optimistic ends, because we don't want to be stuck in the pod eating the bugs. We want to be adventurous and take risks. If everyone here, right, unless you're native, your parents came, or if you are native, if you go back, that your parents came or your ancestors came on a dangerous and arduous voyage to get here. So we were self-selected to be part of this experiment, over time. And I think we all do come from that stock. And so adventure seeking, we're in Texas, right? This is the home of the cowboy, right? What is the more American stereotypical archetype than the cowboy, riding out with, the 10-gallon
Right.
hat and being on the range. This is the American figure. Now, like, I'm from Philadelphia, I'm not a cowboy, but that there is a huge part of the American mythos that's tied up in that, and it's a figure that people strive to kind of emulate. And I think that
we have lost, getting back to the original question, we have lost that as a country, totally lost that as a country.
I will say, just as a quick note, that your go-to example for like American values was what came from Mexican cowboys. I think that's kind of funny. But regardless of that, I think that we talk a lot about liberty in terms of what are we guaranteed on paper? What can we do on paper? I wish that the conversation would move past that, because it is so unbelievably boring to hear about how much opportunity you have on paper. You don't actually have the opportunity in real life. Like, it's when you can go to so many different countries across Europe and people have access to education, they have access to healthcare, they might have to wait in line for it, but they get it. When they have access to like actual opportunity, and then we brag, well, in the United States, you could go from selling crack to, being the CEO of a major company. I find those conversations wholly unsatisfying. I wish that we would talk more about how do we actually.
Well, that goes to show the divide in the two minds of thinking within this panel right here. Just saying.
Ensure that people have actual real access to opportunity, rather than jerking ourselves off about words on paper that don't mean much for a lot of the American public right now. We talk about how the public is in the United States generally optimistic, and then we try to use British cynicism to say they want evil to win over good. I don't know if I agree with that, but I mean, if you want to look for,
I might have to fast forward to the Q&A actually to get back to anything that goes mentioning the vaccines or anything coronavirus related, because I think I'm going to do that, because I think they're pretty much done within this segment of arguing about coronavirus. So let's go.
What?
If any of y'all want to go ahead and check out the debate in its entirety, it is linked down in the description box below right now. And that other debate I mentioned at the bare beginning of this live stream, I will have linked once I go off air.
Is the national, what is the unifying narrative for this country if we are going to stay together?
I have no idea. I don't think there is a unified narrative for the United States.
Let's start with questions.
Well, on behalf of all the Gen Xers, I am not jaded. Very excited to be here. I have a Built Bar wrapper. I wanted to give it to you, Sarah, but I ate it. Sorry about that. Just to get back to the most contentious thing, because I really see it in Dallas, and I'm from California, dividing us is how can you, Sarah, and Steve, is it Steve? Be together, live together, commune together when you do not want to get the vax and will not get the vax, and your children won't, and they won't wear the masks, and you seriously believe that it's a major health issue and that you're a bioterrorist. How do you get that to work?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure Stephen would have a different answer than I would, but I would argue that that's just how we've been living in society this whole time, and it should work no differently than we've been living in society this entire time. We all make different choices for our own bodies. We all can make those choices. We all have the ability to make those choices, and I'm not going to judge.
I think she's missing the nub of her point. She saw a whole bunch of division throughout this debate between you and Destiny, and she wants to know, how can you two live with each other if you have such, I don't know if I would say visceral hate towards each other. I don't know. Tomato Brew in one of the live chats of Destiny's end of the live stream. Get her the fuck out. That's how it's going to work. So, COVID pessimists are next going to start advocating for deportations of anybody who refuses masks and vaccines. Really a free society that we live in. This is exactly what the questioner right there was trying to resolve with her question. Was trying to propel the conversation of solving the issue that she was trying to solve with that question.
Someone for getting the vaccine. I don't think anyone should judge me for not getting the vaccine, because again,
yes,
we live in a society where risk of transmitting disease is literally always going to be 100%. We are always going to transmit diseases. I'm willing to understand that and accept the risks. If someone else isn't willing to understand that and accept the risks, there's only so much I can do. So I'm happy to live with people who do or don't or whatever. In fact, I don't care to know their medical status. And I think that that's the problem, is that you have one side of the aisle who says, I actually don't really care about your medical privacy. I believe that that should stay private. And then there is one side of
Sorry, that whole big moment of silence and sighing right now, folks, but she goes saying that there's one side who doesn't care about people's medical statuses. And as a generality, that is true, that the right does not really care about the left's medical status, but the left, in regards to the coronavirus debate specifically, cares about the right's medical status and really all people's medical status. But at the same time, I do have to say there are those few heavy COVID pessimists, or excuse me, not COVID pessimists, vaccine pessimists on the right. Vaccine shamers, actually, who will want to shame you for getting a vaccine. Trust me, I know at least one example that I am not going to mention right now because it honestly gets a little bit too personal.
the aisle who, again, thinks that I am a bioterrorist threat. So I hope he has a great answer for how we can come together, because I would love to hear it.
So I am absolutely judgmental, very much so, people that I disagree with. However, in the United States, you have two options, basically. So we live in a democracy. I've said this over and over again. I'll continue to say it.
It's a
I can
constitutional
push for the
republic.
things that I believe in, and I can hope that those policies are popular enough to get elected. If the ones that I agree with don't get enacted, I have two options. I either abide by it, and you do it, and there are policies that I disagree with, and you abide by it, and that's how it goes. Or you take your child out, or you remove yourself from whatever situation it is that you don't agree with. If I think that the way that speed limits are done in a way that I don't agree with, then stop driving. Or if you think that the way, if I felt very strongly about vaccine mandates for children and they weren't mandated, then you take your child out of school and you do homeschooling, right?
Well, would you agree?
Yeah, except the fact that you are not going to be invading on other people's liberties, and if you ever want to do, well, not even specifically just speed limits. I think speed limits are fine, but just talking about things in general. He brought forth the speed limit example. I did not bring that forth. But anyway, yeah. Except the fact that you are not going to be infringing on other people's liberties, especially when it comes to vaccines and masks. But except that also, if you want to get on with your life, that you're going to have to take a risk, or else live as, like you kind of implied there, a hermit all your life, Destiny.
Agree, though, that if we had
A recluse, rather.
like what Sean and I are saying, that if we had more empowered states and that it wasn't a federal thing, that, if there were a state law that said that, and, go with the moving, that, hey, I want to live in a state where my policies are more accepted versus coming to a place like Texas or, wherever, like Texas versus California kind of question. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I mean, states have a right. I mean, it has to be decided on a legal battle. I don't know where the rights of the states end and the federal governments begin when it comes to matters of public health and whatnot. But I mean, that's something that the courts fight about. But yeah, I mean, some states have different laws for different things, and obviously you respect the different laws of the different states depending on where you live.
I believe.
That's one thing that I will say that I also respect about Destiny, is because he seems to be a little bit more of a Republican. Small R Republican. I'm talking about the form of government, not the party, y'all. He seems to be a little bit more Republican-esque with his government beliefs as compared to a whole lot of other leftists. Because leftists are all like, democracy, 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 rah, rah, rah. Whereas I've actually seen live streams of where that Destiny would argue in favor of the Electoral College. And here he is kind of acting sympathetic to states' rights, at least. I mean, if the United States comes to the point of where that you have a select few blue states who end up, enacting all this COVID fascism, mandate all the vaccines and boosters that they want, and all the mask mandates, and shut down all the, air quotes, non-essential businesses that they want, well then, yeah, sure, I guess you can argue that that's their states' rights, as long as all the red states want to, let people do what they want with their own body as far as vaccines go and masks go, and do whatever they want with their private property when it comes to businesses.
the precedent that's often cited for why the vaccine mandates are constitutional is a state vaccine
It is,
mandate.
yeah.
It is.
It is.
Yeah.
The central principle is consent of the governed. That's the most important phrase. Consent of the governed, that's the most important phrase in the Declaration of Independence. That's the basis of the Constitution. It requires accountability, which nobody out here, whether you're left or right, is actually seeing in our government. And with accountability, you get credibility, which also is what's lacking with regard to our government. And nobody out here actually thinks that the government gives a damn what we think. The mandate was not part of the last presidential election. Nobody ran on it. Nobody voted for it. So my question is, can y'all agree that consent of the governed and the rules that we play by is actually the way to get back to where we need to be?
Yeah, I mean, I would say you absolutely do consent. Every single decree of the United States government is not voted on by direct democracy. We vote for people that represent us, and then we hope that they enact whatever agenda that we agree with. If we don't, then you go and you vote them out next legislative session. But the idea that just because the president is enacting something or something comes from Congress that we don't directly vote on, it's not the will of the people, I think that betrays a misunderstanding of how our federal government is supposed to work.
Yeah, I would actually agree. I would agree with that to a certain extent. The idea that if something is not in a campaign or in a platform, therefore you didn't consent to it. It's like, no, we do have a representative republic. So you send representatives for a period of time. They don't have to tell you literally everything they do. They should, but you have the opportunity to punish them at the ballot box. However, we have a system where supposedly, allegedly, theoretically, the legislature makes laws, and the president shouldn't be able to look at an OSHA regulation that has to do with people wearing hard hats and say that that applies to a national vaccine mandate. So
You stupid people.
Jack,
So we don't think you have rights again. You have none. You have nothing. We'll mandate everything for you from now on. This is how it goes.
Jack.
By the
no.
way, just to add to Sean's point, these are, and it's not just the OSHA regulation, right? It's also the CDC being used as another arm to enforce the eviction moratorium. I mean, we're seeing these departments being abused, and admittedly, the Biden administration.
I don't know if there's much more that I have to actually respond. I think there might be at least 2 or 3 more spicier points during this Q&A session when they go on talking about vaccines and rights really in general. But yeah, this might get kind of boring to try and get through the rest of the way since I have little to no commentary for the rest of this. But I'm going to try to avoid copyright infringement is all I'm doing right now.
Already said, yeah, this really isn't legal. We really shouldn't be doing this, but we're going to do it anyway. So, I mean, I would agree with you, Sean. I think, like, if we were to get back to the actual system that we were supposed to have with checks and balances and the legislature working as it's supposed to, then I think that would be way better than the system we have now, which is clearly an abuse of power.
Yeah, and if we had that original system, we would not have as quickly as we do now the speeding along of vaccine mandates or anything else like that.
I mean, we say abuse, but it's a conservative court right now. If you think that it's being abused, you challenge it legislatively. If the Supreme Court upholds it, then maybe these federal institutions had more power than we knew originally. Or maybe we should vote in Congress to remove some of the powers that are delegated to them. There's a great deal of deference given to executive agencies when it comes to how they want to implement or enact their particular laws. Maybe that could be scaled back on, but I don't like the idea of saying that, like, it's illegally used or it's not really legal. It's like, I mean, if you don't like it, you have a Supreme Court that is conservative, you can challenge it.
Right. Unfortunately, a Supreme Court case doesn't go there overnight. Right. Like it takes time. Right. It takes time. I mean, I don't disagree with you, but there's not always an immediate fix.
A lot of the lefties, when they were against the wars, would talk about how the war wasn't declared and the president shouldn't just be able to do this, that, and the other. I agree with that in principle. Like, you can't transfer your duties to another branch of the government. That's not how checks and balances work. And the Supreme Court did shut down the eviction moratorium twice. Once they were like, you know what, we'll give Biden a little break. So it was a soft shutdown, and then he took advantage of that to expand it again. And he knew he had no authority, admitted it, he did it anyway.
All right. This question is for Destiny, Steven, whichever you prefer. Do you believe that people on the right, including some of the people on this panel, actually believe that the left is goading them into extremism? Or do you think that they're intentionally lying to gaslight moderates and the left?
one of the hugest problems. What? Yeah, true, you are, am I right? I think it is absolutely fucking horrible how crazy everybody is on different sides of the political aisle. I will, unless I have a really good reason to believe so, I will never think that somebody is acting in some malicious or horrible manner. Like, I think that you probably genuinely do believe that you're doing what's best for your family and your children. I would hope so.
I know I am.
And I would assume the same of any conservative. I think that people on the left and people on the right all too often get into these mindsets where they're very quick to demonize or frame how other people are acting in the very worst of ways. But I mean, like, that's just the nature, unfortunately, of the political landscape.
You see this, Sean? You cannot simply run around.
Okay, yeah, he's getting back into the divide discussion. There was one particular person who posed one particular question. Actually, no. It wasn't this debate that I saw like one of the leftists getting heated in it with one of the questioners. It was a debate in which AJW was teaming up with James Lindsay against Lispy and Jangles is the guy's name, or Justin of SJW Debates as well. It was that debate where Lispy got in it with one of the questioners. I thought I'm getting things mixed up. Anyway, I think since it's more clicking to me that there's no more debate really to review. I think that's about it, folks. So yeah. What do you all think? Anybody who is still in the live chat, do you think that Destiny's takes were all stupid throughout this debate? Do you actually agree with him, or what do you think? Just wondering. Yeah, I mean, I have nothing more to say in response. I think throughout the rest of the Q&A, there's not really that much to go around talking about vaccine mandates. It was really that middle section, actually, now that I think about it, where I really had stuff to say in response to Destiny, particularly the bioterrorist weapon retarded talking point. That was the most stupid thing out of this whole debate, really, and it came from Destiny, one of the few leftists that I actually respect. Lost some respect for a moment there. But yeah. Something more in the live chat. That's pretty much all that I was gonna be for here for this live stream on. Was just reviewing this one debate. So no news articles or anything like that. If you wanted to hear me read about news like Ghislaine Maxwell or talk about gas pipelines or anything else like that, go tune into the last episode, the very last episode of Strike Force. This is 229? Yeah, 229. Last one was 228. Go tune into that one if you want to hear commentary on the news, particularly the Maxwell trial. I'm not going to do it here because this live stream took long enough. Yeah. Listen to the entire debate yourself, this entire conversation yourself if you like. I highly encourage it. Even though that you might have listened to my response to the debate and just let the debate play, at least a good portion of it anyways, the more spicier portion of it. I still encourage watching it yourself to get a little bit more of a raw experience of it as opposed to listening to somebody respond to it. But anyways, that's probably gonna do it for me. Everybody who is watching the live stream, if you appreciated the commentary from me and from Night Shift 10,000 as he was in here earlier, and I would like to give a big thanks to Night Shift 10,000 for joining as he did earlier. But if you like the commentary that me or him or both of us, then go ahead and hit that like button. Don't forget to hit that. It helps in the algorithm. And yeah, I guess that's about it. I will see y'all later, and have a good night and God bless. Take care, y'all.